The people who did this survey on a website must be frequent users of internet. This sample is a biased sample. So we have to pay attention to how a survey is conducted. The function of language tends to settle in the left hemisphere of the brain after the critical period. And it is thought that the brain loses some of its plasticity after this lateralization. So, if you have not learned language until after this point, it may be harder for your brain to learn the new material. So if you are estimating how much time has elapsed, if there was a period full of new memories, then you are left with the impression that it was a long period of time retrospectively. Plant growth depends on levels of sunlight and soil nutrients. The amount of edible plants affects the population of herbivores, which in turn impacts the carnivores that feed on them. Moderate stress can actually help experiences enter your memory. Your brain responds to stressful stimuli by releasing hormones, which activate a process of threat detection and threat response. The first thing you notice about the motion is that it repeats itself. The cork traces the same path over and over again up and down. This repetitive or periodic motion is characteristic of waves. Fish stick together in groups, but that's not just because they enjoy each other's company. It's a matter of survival. Schools of fish exhibit complex swarming behaviors that help them evade hungry predators. The learning zone is when our goal is to improve. Then we do activities designed for improvement, concentrating on what we have not mastered yet, which means we have to expect to make mistakes, knowing that we will learn from them. It is so important how people perceive the library. So, that was quite an important message in our research. And indeed, the smell is an important way of how we communicate with the environment. It is just so enriching, and it is really inspiring to actually work with these kids, particularly when you can provide them with an ability to start to playing their own music as opposed to just taking part through listening to other musicians and really learning from. The main source of pollution now is from cars and lorries, and although these don't produce visible signs, this air pollution is still a significant risk to health. And one of the key factors in the rise of this type of pollution is that we have all become much more vehicle dependent. The birth rates increased during 20th century, but it starts to decrease over these last 2 decades. In the year 2000, as an example, the birth rate remained at around 1%. There are even some negative birth rates in other countries. Under conditions of extreme heat or cold, people can suffer from mental and physical health consequences, including the possibility of death. Strategies for coping with uncomfortable temperatures, such as burning trash or sitting in one's car with the heat running. We are able to extract that information, we are able to take the visual stuff out there, interpret it in a way that allows us to recognize all the different things that we can see in our environment. People used to go to only near places, but now people who don't have their own vehicles can go further because public transportation help them travel long distance. Those who participate in the training then have practical skills and supplies to care for others in their community in a way that glorifies God and opens the door for sharing the gospel in a new way. They uncovered many interesting research problems is the cause of teaching assumption. It is this unity of research and teaching, their close connection, and the benefits gathered by exercising and the interplay that to me characterizes the successful professor. These robots being human, they are actually in the play assembled on a production line, a bit like the Ford manufacturing production line. So even though they are human, they are assembled and these robots are designed to labor, and that is their primary purpose in society. Primitive brain functions to manage the physical to survive, manage reflex, motor motion control, monitoring body functions, and process information coming from sensing. Traffic circulation was another major problem. The widest streets in these two neighborhoods were only 5 meters wide and the narrowest were only 1 or 2 meters wide. Wagons, carriages, and carts could barely move through the streets.